Hey guys, it's Monica at Academic Phoenix Plus, and welcome to a tutorial on how to use Substance Painter. In this tutorial, we're going to cover how to export your 3D model into Substance Painter, texture it, and then bring it back into Maya. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so this is my current scene. I'm going to turn off the grid so we can see it as is. And I already have a light set up and everything. Let's render and let's see what it looks like so far. All right, so this is the render so far. We have a sky dome and a couple of spotlights, but in general, the lighting is very simple, and it also just has a very simple Lambert. So let's go ahead and export this to bring it into Substance. Now, before you bring anything into Substance, you need to make sure that your UVs are complete. So in case you don't know what UVs are a 2D representation of a 3D model. So wherever I paint on this will show up on the 3D model. So make sure that you know what the top of the book is and all that stuff. So for example, I'm going to go to face, and if I click on this top face, you'll see that this is the area where the front of the book is. So this must be the back. And if I click on this must be the front of the book. And over here we have the side of the book, and so on and so forth. So just make sure that your UVs are laid out and you know what each piece does. Okay, so since our object is ready, let's go ahead and export. We're going to go to File, Export Selection. I am going to export this as an OBJ. So just scroll down and look for OBJ. And I personally I'm going to leave it in scenes and call this my book OBJ. Now you can export FBX. Substance Painter does accept FBX, and I would recommend to look it up online what the difference are, but OBJ will work just fine. Let's go ahead and export, and we are ready for Substance. Let's go into Substance. All right, welcome to Substance. Let's go to File, New. I'm going to choose PBR, Metallic Roughness. Let's click on Select. I'm going to go to my Scenes folder and grab the book. I'm personally going to increase this to 2448 because I like to have high resolution on my documents, and then click OK. And here it is, my book. Nice, looks good. And over here is my UVs. If you guys don't see this view up here at the top, there is a 3D, 2D view, which is F1. You can also do F2 and then F3. Okay, welcome to Substance Painter. Up here at the top, we have our menu. We have our paint, because right now we're in a brush. You can see that we have a size, flow, and a couple of other things. We have our tools here. Down here is a shelf full of amazing materials, libraries, and brushes. Of course, we've already talked about our view here, and we also have our properties windows on the right. So if this is your first time using Substance, how Substance works is based on baked maps. I'll show you what that means. Let's go to Texture Set Settings up here on the right, and I'm going to scroll down until we see something called Bake Mesh Maps. This is going to help us drive all of these textures that we see down here. So this is the first thing you need to do is Bake Mesh Maps. And I like to increase my output size to 2048. This is the size of the texture map that we're going to export. So this is known as a 2K map. Now there's a lot of options over here. Again, this is just an introduction to Substance. So let's move on and go to ambient occlusion. And I like to say that you always ignore the backspace. And I also like to increase my raise to like 256. Curvature map as well. I like to increase that to 256. And again, those are all powers of 2. Let's go to thickness, 256, and let's go back to the comment tab. Again, double check to make sure this is 2048 and hit Bake Select Textures. So what it's going to do is it's going to start baking the maps, and you can see what they look like over here. And just give it a second while it does its thing. All right, now that we have our maps, there is a little bit of an issue here, and part of it is because the UVs are a little stretched, but we're going to still work with what we have. Okay, so now that we did our texture set, let's go over here back into layers, and let's talk about what the first one is, which is an empty layer. So this is layer 1, and what we can do is actually paint on this layer. So over here to the right, bottom right, we have a properties paint. And I'm going to scroll down, and you can see that we have something called color, height, roughness, metalness, and normal. So if I grab the color and change this to red, I'll be able to actually physically paint on the book. And as you can see, it also impacts the UV map. We do have a height map, so if you increase this, it will make it look like it's rising. And if I decrease this, it will make it look like it's sinking. I'm going to go back to 0 just because I want to make sure you guys can see the difference. We also have roughness. So for example, if I scroll to the side here, the roughness is how rough this material is. So for example, right now it's a 0.3, and you can see this example here as well. If I decrease the sample, you're going to see that the reflections are much clearer. That's because it's got less roughness, right? So you guys can see the reflections here. If I increase the roughness, and you can see here, it becomes much more matte. So you get these two different types of textures. And that's really important to understand because you want to make sure that whatever you're going to be texturing matches, let's say, your reference image. So let me put this back to 0.3, which is the default. And now we have something else that's reflective, which is metallic. Metallic means exactly what it sounds like. The more you increase the metal, the more metallic it's going to look like. So now we have the difference between this one, which is very little roughness, and metallic. Now, to make it really look like metal, I'm going to decrease my roughness so you can see how reflective that dome is. Now I have something that looks really reflective. That's very metallic. Right? So it takes a little bit of practice to kind of see what's going on, but the less rough it is and the more metallic it is, you get this really cool looking metal. And then you have the other ranges as well. So controlling this is what's going to help with your book look more realistic. Okay, so that's the paintbrushes, but that's not really what Substance is famous. Well, that is one of the reasons why Substance is famous, but it's actually all of this stuff down here. So why don't we play with that? Let me go ahead and undo all of this. So we get a nice fresh book, and let's go back to changing this to 0. So going back here, I'm going to change this back to white just to keep it default. My height is at 0. My roughness is at, let me change that to 0.3. And my metallic is going to be 0. So this is the default. Now what I'm going to do is right click on this, and I am going to create a brush preset. In case I change any of these attributes and I don't have to memorize all the attributes, I'm going to create a brush preset. So here it is. And I'm going to call this default. This is going to help because there's a lot of brushes out there. So this will help me keep my brushes organized. And scroll down to materials. And I can right click on here and say create material preset. And again, this is just going to be my default. So I'm going to call this default material. So if I need to, I can always go type in here. I can write default and it will show up. Make. So any type of changes I make, I can just go into default and I'll be able to just pop it in and go back to default. Same thing with the alpha. I can create a tool preset. Here's my brush. I can right click on it. Again, just call it default tool preset. Nice. All right, cool. Let's go into all, and what makes Substance famous is its shaders. So I'm going to go type in leather, and you're going to notice that we have several types of materials that we can use for leather. And to see them, we can just click and drag them onto the model, or you can drag it up here to the top under layers. So you'll see that this is one type of leather. I'm going to drag this one to the top. Here's another type of leather. So there's a variety of leathers that you guys can choose from. So it really depends what type of leather you want your book to be. So I'm trying to create a leather book, and I'm going to choose something like this. It's a little glossy. I'm going to start with this one. Now, again, you guys can explore and have some fun with it, but I like the way this looks. Now, what if we wanted to change some of this? Well, we can always open up this folder and kind of mess around with some of the edge damages, for example. I can also change the color, for example. Here's the color, and if you want to, you can kind of change it to a little bit more brown. So there's a lot of things you guys can play around with. If you want, you can also increase the roughness so it's a little bit more rough. And there's just a lot you can do with. Now that we have this leather book, how do we make it our own? Like, how do we add some text to this? Well, Substance Painter has text. Again, I'm all the way at all. And if I type in font, you're going to see that we get a couple of fonts. And I can play with this. So for example, let me create a new layer. This is just my regular layer. And let me grab something that looks like a book. Let's see. And you can hover so you can see what it looks like. Let's grab this one. And it's going to turn into a brush, right? So to make the brush bigger, you can go over here to the size, or you can hit right bracket, just like Photoshop, or left bracket. So go ahead and increase it. And then I can just stamp it, and I have Substance. Now, I'm not doing that. I'm going to choose something else, but at least you guys know how to just stamp it. Now, this is a new alpha, right? So this is considered a brush, and we now replaced it with an image called Substance. And over here under text, I can change it. So for example, maybe I want to call this how to, and then I'm going to scroll down and I can change the color. Now let's say I want to be fancy and make this out of gold. So I can click in here and start playing with the colors to make it look like gold. So gold is a little bit interesting. It's not exactly yellow. It's a little bit more in the yellow-green. And if I keep scrolling down, I do want this to maybe sink, so it looks like it's been pressed. So I want the height to be down. I want less roughness, and I also want it to be metallic. So increase the metalness. Now, if I want to, I can just stamp on the book, or I can stamp on the 2D mode. So here we go. I'm going to type, just go ahead, and you can see it right there. How to, maybe a little bit more on the left, something like that. Go back to over here and say, texture in. Right, so I can type in texture in. I can undo and maybe capitalize in. And again, one more. I can go texture in substance. Stamp. Okay, I changed my mind. I'm going to make this bigger. Substance. And then I'm going to type in texture in and just make it smaller. Nice. Okay. Now here's the thing. When you guys create the brushes and you texture, let's say you're like, well, I actually want it to be a little bit more lighter white. The issue is that it's permanent. You would have to redo this whole thing. So I'm going to show you another way that you guys can create texture. And that's through a shader. So let's go ahead and type in gold up here. And we have several gold here. And I'm just going to grab pure gold or gold pure and drag it to the top. Now, the issue is that the book is completely made out of gold, which is not what we want. We just want the text to be gold. So let me hide layer 2, which is our text. And I'm going to show you something called the black matte. The black matte means that anything black you won't be able to see, and anything white you'll be able to see. So I'm going to right click on this and choose Add Black Mask. So now it looks like this. There is no gold. It's all gone. But actually it's still here. It's just that you have to texture in white. So make sure that this is in white. Again, I'm going to choose font. And make your brush big. So I'm hitting my bracket. And this time you don't even have to worry about the gold or the color. It's automatically in this layer. We're just going to be using white to be able to see it. So I'm going to click on substance and click, and you'll see it right here. Now, unfortunately, it's not that low, and it actually just looks like a stamp. So I can still change some parameters. That's what makes this really powerful. So I'm going to go back over here into my color, and I can reduce my roughness so it's shinier. The metalness is already pretty bright. And notice that height is turned off. I'm going to turn it on and reduce it. So now it's being pressed inward. So I can make changes off the fly, which is awesome. This is what Substance is so great. All right, that's a little too low. Let me go ahead and just bring it back up a little bit. And I'm okay with that gold. I can change the color of the gold too. So if I wanted a little bit more orangey, I can. And there we go. Going to go back into my mask and redo my text. I'm going to say how to texture in, and I'm going to hit my bracket so it's smaller. Substance. Cool. All right. So now that we have our text, let's add some decorations. I'm going to delete the font part, and we can go ahead and play with alphas. So when we go to all, it means that it reveals everything that Substance has for us. But under alphas, we can choose particular brushes. So if you scroll down, you're going to find that there's a lot of things you guys can play around with. We have circles, we have designs. So boink. I'm going to put it right here in the middle. You have all sorts of really cool things that you guys can choose from. So have some fun. I can grab a little design here, just make it small. And I can kind of make a decor. And there you go. So now you have a substance. Let's say I don't want this design anymore. Well, you can grab your brush and you need to paint it out. And to paint it out, you have to paint with black. So again, we have changed the alpha to be this. So what I can do is go over here and look for shape. Here's the original shape, pink, and then you can see that it's white. So that's why we're seeing that color. So I can change this to black. And the shortcut is X. If you click on X in the keyboard, you can change this to black and you can paint this back. So again, black means you can't see it. White means you can. Gray means you can see part of it. All right, let's grab another design. Let's say maybe a handprint. There's a lot of interesting handprints here. Something like this. Make it big with the bracket. And I'm just going to stamp. Stamp. So now we have gold. It's being pressed in. We have leather. And it's looking pretty good. And some text. Cool. All right, let's talk about the pages. By the way, I have an extra layer here. I'm going to press delete. I also have this layer 1. Let's delete. And now we're ready to start worrying about the pages. All right, now we have the leather book with the gold text and decorations. This is a good place to stop. In the next video tutorial, we are going to cover how to create pages using Substance Painter. So keep an eye out for the next video tutorial when we complete the book by adding the pages and also exporting the textures to Maya and rendering. So I will see you in the next video tutorial. By the way, you can download this 3D model at academicphoenixplus.com under download. So take a look at academicphoenixplus.com for a free download so you can follow along. Again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please don't forget to hit that little thumbs up button to like and also subscribe to my channel. That is your message to me, letting me know that you are interested in these videos and you want to see more. And if you feel like this video tutorial is going to be helpful to somebody, like your friends, your coworkers, your teachers, whoever, please share. That would be amazing. Again, thank you so much for watching. Keep creating, and I will see you next time.